that we can share later. So today's session is I'm going to try to get us out of here by 1 o'clock. I'm going to try to finish early so that we can answer some questions. I'm going to do a quick training here, a platform demo, so you can see how we have custom software that we use to do our reviews. I'll cover some frequently asked questions, give some tips, right? And then hopefully we have some time at the end for Q&A. I want to acknowledge this is a very diverse group in the room. Most of you are Americans, but we have some Canadians, we have some Europeans, we have a few Africans as well. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. The committee is quite diverse overall. This is a good representation. We've had people from, I think, over 80 different countries review a proposal. Similar numbers have submitted proposals. There's also quite a bit of field diversity, education and public health, international development, the arts, climate change, folks working in the legal profession, workforce development, community services, recovery, health centers, you name it, really. And we've reviewed a proposal on that topic, or we have an evaluator who's working in that field. The one unifying thing, right, is grant proposals, institutional philanthropy. And I think having that diversity of perspective is one of the things that makes our feedback reports uniquely valuable. Even if funders were able to give feedback to the authors, it would be feedback from just that one funder's perspective. We are able to provide in our reports feedback from a variety of different perspectives and levels of experience. From folks who are reviewing their very first proposal. A lot of people have reviewed their first proposal with us, which is a point of pride for me. And we also have people who have 30 years of experience reviewing proposals. So if you are one of our newer folks, you should feel confident in sharing your own perspective. Don't worry about being right. We have plenty of folks who've been doing this a long time who are on the committee as well. We have been pretty intentional over the last 11 years in making this focus on making this a learning community. We are not a grant consulting service, right? If you want us to if you want us to rewrite your grant for you, we don't necessarily do that. We don't do your fundraising for you. We do the thing that other folks don't do, which is give feedback to grant proposals. And we try to do our best to learn as much as we can while we're doing that. The problem that we're focusing on is, as I said, proposals get submitted, but they don't receive feedback. So we're addressing a structural gap in philanthropy. Most funders receive far too many proposals to give feedback, and that has only increased over the last few years. The funders that I've spoken to are telling me it's not just that they're getting twice as many or 3 times as many proposals. They're saying 5, 6 times as many proposals. Let's see, looks like we have a question. So Margaret, my board chair, often runs the chat for me and asks questions. So I will do my best to get to the questions at the end. Spark the Fire, I know Allison Jones, actually, she's one of our evaluators. It's an interesting question. I've never taken that specific course, Sandy. We've got some people to admit here. Sorry, all right, almost 50 folks here. Welcome, everybody. I've just finished introducing myself. We're going to dive into some details about the round. I think I'm just going to share some of you might be visual learners. So here's my, here's my outline that I'm following. I've covered the top section here. You are part of a global volunteer evaluating committee. Welcome. This round is pretty exciting. We have 96 proposals to review. That is one of the larger cohorts of proposals we've had. I think this is our 22nd round. I think this is top 5 largest proposals. And most of the ones where we had more proposals than this were because we had a very large partnership. We've partnered with grant makers and other capacity building groups. For instance, last round, we partnered with Candid. They sponsored half of the round, 50. We had 100 proposals last round, but 50 of those came through Candid's outreach. We were able to get 96 this round. While we do have some, we have two smaller partnerships. We did not, most of these came through organic outreach, largely because evaluators like yourself are sharing spreading the word about the program, submitting your own proposals. We have 38 returning organizations, which is also a record. So, and some of you are in the room here. So these are folks who have submitted a proposal in the past, got feedback from us, and they have come back. 38 of those folks. So, and I don't think it's indicated in the session in our software whether they've come back or not, but it's well over a third of all the proposals have been through our process before. A little shout out to Mary Center, whose proposal is in there in the batch this round. This is the 16th proposal that they have shared with us. They submit a proposal pretty much every round. This is a Mary Center is a federally qualified health clinic in DC, serving the poorer areas of DC. They really enjoy getting our feedback. We do when we have the report discussions with them. We talk to their grant writing team. They're raising money on a lot of different topics. So each proposal we get is, sometimes it's a dental proposal or a maternal health proposal or a child nutrition proposal. Sometimes it's to corporate funders, government funders, foundations, lots of different stuff coming from them. And that enables them to really sort of thoroughly work on their fundraising. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know they are raising almost twice as much as they were when they sent us their first proposal a few years ago. So I imagine it's working. 37 of the organizations we're reviewing this round are from new organizations. It is hard for me to reach. One of the things that is a challenge, we don't have a huge marketing budget. It's hard to get particularly smaller nonprofits to send us their proposals. They're very busy. They've got actual proposals to funders to submit. Along with lots of, they have to actually provide services to their communities. So it is a challenge to get new folks in. 37 new organizations is another record for us this round. And again, I credit the strength of the community. When we speak to them, most of them tell us that they found out about us from an evaluator. So in future rounds, you're certainly, encouraged to spread the word. If you hear some, particularly if you hear someone saying that like, oh, it's, I really wish I could get some feedback on this proposal, we absolutely would like to review them. While 96 is a record for us, with 600 active evaluators, we could definitely be reviewing quite a few more. We have a couple of partnerships this round. We're partnered. I'm here in the state of Maine. I live in Oakland, Maine. And we partner with the MAMP, which is the Maine Association of Nonprofits. They've helped us find some new evaluators. We have a couple dozen evaluators who are based in Maine who've joined us this round. And we have 11 proposals from all over the state. A variety of different stuff. Some of them are national organizations that just happen to be based here. Others are more locally serving health, serving youth, recovery, some arts organizations. It's pretty cool for me to have proposals from my home state in the mix. We also are working with a funder that funds innovative, scalable, early stage nonprofits called The Greater Sum. They have a unique funding model. I think it's like a 3-year funding platform that you get. And they've started to try to provide more resources to their alumni. So they're doing a grant writing boot camp type course with their alumni. There's 10 of their folks that have previously been funded by them who are working through this course to strengthen their own grant writing. As a part of that course, they're going to get a feedback report from us, the opportunity to talk to me about it, and then some other resources being provided by the Greater Sum. So these are with that partnership, this isn't their proposal to Greater Sum, it's some proposal they wrote to some other funders. So it's 10 different funders from 10 different organizations. Most of the organizations they fund seem to be in the southern United States. So there's a few in Georgia and a few in Florida and some other ones throughout the South. I'm from Maine myself, so my network isn't that big in the South, so it's cool to have some extra geographic diversity there. If you're involved with a funder and you're interested in doing a partnership like the one Greater Sum or MAMP are doing, I'd be very eager to talk about that with you. Please feel free to follow up. So as I mentioned, 600 plus active evaluators. We do have a few evaluators joining pretty much every day. I get a few new signups. Right now, we're in the round. Hopefully, you've all received your assignments email. If not, let me know. I'll make sure we get that to you. People who sign up today, I'm pretty much every day looking over the new signups, and generally I'm getting their so if you sign up this week, you're going to get proposals probably within a day of signing up. And we'll probably add 100 or so more evaluators throughout this round. We've had 1,500 people review a proposal in total over the last 10 years. And that number seems likely to grow quite a bit over the next few years. As I said, it's a point of pride for me that we have not relied too heavily on institutional funding, or we've had several institutional partnerships, but they do tend to come and go. Candid worked with us last round. We did a great job, but they've gone through some sort of strategic pivot and are not working with us this round. That's been kind of a consistent experience particularly with our partnerships with larger organizations. And nonetheless, we have continued to grow. That is largely from the strength of the community. So our focus, we had a strategic conversation about this with the board a few years ago, and it's been really working out for us the last few years to focus mainly on, building this community, making sure evaluators have a good experience. I'm very thoughtful about the assignments I make to you. We try to provide as much training for folks as possible, be as communicative as possible. The primary audience that I'm thinking about are our evaluators and our authors. We do welcome partnership and institutional funding, but that is not really the primary growth driver for us. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm kicking after 11 years and plan to keep doing this for a while. I'm not sure I'm largely on time here. Look at me. This is spring here in Maine. We just had snow the other day, but I guess allegedly it is the spring. I know some of you, some of our global evaluators, it might not be spring for you. The proposals were due March 20th. There was a grace period. Some of the folks were in late. I do my best to try to be responsive to that. At this point, it is too late to submit a proposal. We'll be reviewing again in the fall if you've got something that you'd like to be reviewed. I was able to get the assignments out early. My goal was actually to be sending them tomorrow, but I finished last Friday making my assignments. And we got all of those out. They should be in your inbox. Like I said, if they're not, let me know. We'll make sure you get your link and you can start reviewing. Today is our first training of the round. We have a couple more scheduled. I may do another Q&A in early May if there's interest for that, or if we have a lot of new evaluators that join. These trainings are not required to review. But the system, it's a little evaluator in the so we have next week our board chair Margaret, who is is very good with budgets and financials and stuff, and has a very strong background with that. She's been involved with nonprofits that have $50,000 budgets, and she's been involved with nonprofits that have $50 million budgets. So she really runs the gamut with that and has a really good way of communicating about budgets. This is a pretty unique training she does, which is about how to review someone else's budgets and make comments on it. So it's not like how to write your own, it's how to read a budget and how to connect that to the financial narrative and how to make sense of it. Should be very valuable, whether you're a finance guru or you have no idea how to read a budget. She's very good at covering all of those things. There may or may not be a budget song that she sings. No promises, but probably you'll get to hear it if you attend that one. And then we work with Spur Local on reviewer training stuff. This is a DC-based group. They used to be called Catalog for Philanthropy. And their executive director, Matt, is coming to do a training on bias and trust in review. He's going to cover a lot of different kinds of biases, racial and gender bias, institutional bias, affinity bias. And one of the newer things that we've been talking about is AI bias. I think particularly in philanthropy, a lot of people if you know the proposal was written with AI, how is that affecting how you read it? We'll talk a little bit more about AI in this session as well. So we are currently reviewing. Your feedback will be due May 23rd. If you can, get that feedback in early. We are trying to do full coverage on all 96 of these proposals. So and big part of my job is making sure that each proposal gets reviews from several evaluators. The goal this round is going to be 6 different reviews in each proposal. And if everybody waits until the last day to do their reviews, that's going to make things harder for me. A lot of you will wait to the last day. I understand that. But if you can get them done early, that'll be greatly appreciated. And if you want to get them done early and ask for more assignments, I'll be happy to do that. If you finish early and you like it, you can just pick proposals off of the full list. They're there in the system. Or if you want, I can tell you which ones I think you'll most enjoy reviewing. Every round we have folks who do finish early and ask for additional reviews. That's very helpful. So the proposals vary so the question is, how much time should one evaluations take? I think on average, an hour. We've got a lot of data on that. That it takes about an hour to review a proposal. These were proposals from a wide variety of different organizations, submitted to a wide variety of different funders, and we have a lot of different evaluators. So there's quite a bit of range on that. Some of these proposals are just simple LOIs, 3 pages with no budget. You might be able to review that quite quickly in a matter of minutes. Other proposals, some of these federal grant submissions or proposals on complicated topics, or if it's a field that you don't know that much about and you want to do some research and look at the website of that foundation and the funder. Because you got to remember, with each review, you're learning about a new nonprofit in the proposal, but you also want to learn about a new funder and try to figure out their priorities so you can give helpful feedback there. So some of our evaluators who really put some time into it, they might be taking well over an hour. And hopefully that's a valuable learning experience for you to be able to do that kind of a deep dive into there. But whatever if you're only able to go quickly, read the proposal, provide a few comments, that will be very helpful. If you do want to do a deeper dive and spend longer on that, that's encouraged as well. This is meant to be a flexible learning opportunity. I know all of you are very busy. I don't want to be too burdensome on you or your time. We appreciate whatever time you're able to put in. Once the feedback is all in, I review your comments. If some of the stuff so in general, I pass all of the comments along and include them in the reports. But if you write something like, I'm not able to comment on this, then that's not going to get in the report. Or if you write, I don't have enough information, or those sorts of things, I'd rather you write nothing at all, just skip that prompt. Our prompt set is long. There's like over 20 different prompts, which is designed to be comprehensive. We're not asking you to respond to, and I'll go over the prompts in a minute. For now, I want to be clear. We're not asking you to respond to every single prompt we ask. You can pick and choose the ones where you think you're best able to give valuable feedback. A few of the prompts are very open-ended, like what are your overall impressions, or what are your strategic recommendations? So others are more specific. Each evaluator, very few evaluators respond to every single prompt. Some folks do, but a lot of folks sort of pick and choose the ones that are most in their lane. And you can remember that each proposal is being reviewed by a bunch of different folks. So almost certainly someone will cover the questions that you skip, and there will be quite a bit of feedback in each of the reports we send out. So on June 1st, I am going to send those reports out, after which the folks have the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one conversation to discuss the report. So we give them some time to read it. They schedule time. Usually that's with me. Our board chair, Margaret, does the report discussions as well. Usually it's so in the fall round, we had 100 proposals, which is great for percentages. So 75% of the 100 did a report discussion with us. I did 50 of them. Margaret did 25 of them. And those are, I think the report is very useful on its own. But I think the program is really not complete until they've done this report discussion, had the opportunity to talk to me, work through the feedback. I've read, I've now put together like 1,500, I think, of these reports. So I generally have some insights to share. I know I know a lot about our evaluators. I can talk about their backgrounds and why they might be saying what they're saying, and help the folks brainstorm next steps in there. So we will now do a live demo. I used to be very bad at screen sharing as I go along, and I'm proud to say that my multitasking skills have really improved over the years. I say that. I say that now and then. Here we go. Yeah. So here is the. So this is my assignment page. This is what I see when I log in. Oh. Yeah. So sorry. This is my test account. But that'll work for us. So this is exactly what it'll look like for you when you log in. Your assignments, you'll have your personal assignments here. These were made thoughtfully. So I, over the last few weeks, after I read all the proposals, then I go evaluator by evaluator. I spend a few minutes on each of you. I read your application to us. I look at your qualifications and your experience. And in particular, I look at our last question when you signed up was, what kind of proposals do you want to review? I look that over. A lot of you just write anything. I'll read anything. And so at that point, sometimes I look at your LinkedIn and try to figure out which proposals make the most sense to assign to you. I also have to balance that with the needs of the group, right? So if all of you said, I want to read health proposals, right, then some of our proposals aren't on that topic. I need to make sure everybody gets covered. But we are blessed with evaluators. So I think we have more than enough coverage. Not really worried about getting everything done. But when you log in, you see this list here. We have a little, if you want to watch this video we made, how to review, it's a short animated thing that walks you through it. And you can also look at the full list of proposals. So we have all 96 of them listed here. You can see the organization name, the project that they're fundraising for, and then the funder or various funders that they applied to. We do encourage our folks because I think it improves the feedback. We encourage them to tell us exactly what funder they applied to, and if possible, to give us a link to that application so that you can learn as much as you can about that process. It's important to note that we don't necessarily have a relationship with these funders. Some of these funders aren't that great at sharing their RFPs or their application processes. Because these grants happened in the past, some of these opportunities may be closed and no longer available online. So we've done our best to try to collect this information and provide that for you. Sometimes it's just a draft. They don't know where they're applying yet. They just want to get some early feedback. You can see this one here is unsubmitted, whereas others are doing a good job of telling you exactly where they applied. Lots of different kinds of stuff in here, as you'll see. When you're ready to review, right, we'll click on the story road. Okay. This one I believe is from New Mexico. They're trying to make a film. They applied to the Film Institute filmmaker grant thing. You can probably try to Google that and maybe find some information about it. This is the film that they're trying to make, some information, right, telling us about the proposal. They've submitted cold. They have no history, right, which is pretty common. They've not received any feedback on this. They got a standard rejection letter. That's also a very common thing for us to hear. This person saying, please spare no criticism. That's also something that we hear quite a lot. I think sometimes I hear from evaluators like, oh, I have something very critical to say about this. I'm worried about being too harsh. It's important to remember all these people have asked for feedback. We're not giving unsolicited feedback to people. They're not going to be surprised by it. A lot of them, and also that these aren't Twitter comments. You're not commenting online. We're only going to share this stuff with the authors themselves. We're certainly not going to show it to the funder or anybody like that. So generally, you should feel free to Be kind in your review, but you don't necessarily need to hold back. You click here, link to the proposal. That opens up the proposal. Here, you can see here. These come in a variety. They send it to us in a variety of different formats. This one looks pretty good. This is probably something that they downloaded directly from the funders platform, right? So it shows this is actually what they submitted. Other times it might be like a Word document draft that they submitted, or just the narrative. But this one's pretty useful because it's got a budget, and you can actually see the questions that the funder asked, and lots of good information in there. Go back to here. Quickly go over. So a few years ago, we did a series of sessions with our evaluators to rewrite our prompt set. We reviewed every single prompt that we were asking. The evaluators suggested some new prompts to add, and we also did some wordsmithing on what's there. And so this is the result of that. Again, you don't have to answer every single. You're welcome to, but you don't have to answer every single one of these prompts. That's not my expectation. Very few evaluators actually do that. You should, if you go through the prompts, right? Hopefully you have some overall impressions, right? This is a new one that we added during that evaluator session. And this has actually been a really unique and interesting question to add to the set. So this is, do you have any comments or suggestions that are more for the funder than they are for the proposal author? As you're reading this proposal, some of these thoughts may occur to you, that the question the funder asked was confusing, right? Or that there were questions they should have asked but didn't, or that you have some other kind of criticism for how the funder is doing their funding. That's really useful. It's really useful for me to hear about as I think about how to run this program, and it's useful for the authors to hear about because they might have been thinking the same thing, and it's very confirming for them to hear from other folks that yes, this application was confusing, it was difficult, right? And when possible, we do our best to try to share these insights with the funder, particularly if we have a relationship with them, right? We'll try to, right? We'll generalize, synthesize some of the comments that we received for funders, right? Try to share those and try to have some impact on the sector in that way. When we've had partnerships with grant makers, so we had one a few years ago with the Dental Trade Alliance Foundation, and our evaluators had a lot of feedback for them. There were some confusing questions on their form, and some typos and stuff, and we were able to share that feedback with the funder, which we've been able to do a few times. And in general, the funders are pretty responsive to that and have even made changes to their process. In my experience, very few funders look at their own application form. So this is a very good way. It looks like we've got a question here. Pause for a minute. Look at that. Yeah, so is there a way for evaluators to see what other reviewers have written? I'd be curious, what I'd be missing as an evaluator so it would improve my practice. Unfortunately, no. We do tell these are critical comments from authors. We do tell the authors we are going to, we're not going to show this feedback to anyone else. I want evaluators to feel, to know that as well. While I agree, this can be useful. It's just not something we're currently able to do is show you directly other evaluators' comments. What we do every round is for the past few years now, with the help of AI, I do put together an insights report, which is basically I show all of the comments. Last round, we had over 17,000 individual comments that came out of the round. I show the proposals and all of those comments to the AI, and I ask it to generalize that and give us a little summary report. So it gives you the types of comments that are being made, the most common mistakes that are being noticed, the areas of focus that funders are making comments on. I'll share some of those insights here. If anyone wants to read that full report from last round, it's a very interesting report, the 2025 Insights Report. But I can't really show you the individual comments from other evaluators. I also wouldn't want those to influence you. When I was on the funding side of things, I'm pretty outspoken and convincing. And I noticed that, sometimes when I was in giving circles, I was very influential. People would come into the meeting having certain preferences, and I could change their minds pretty quickly. And I do want to get your raw, unvarnished opinions into these feedback reports, so that the authors, can see that, that uninfluenced stuff. All right, very good. If anybody else has, and someone is. Yeah, every time I do a session, someone mentions crappy funding practices. I don't, so I'm glad to have that mentioned. We have not, it's pretty good streak that we're on now. Someone mentions them every time. Lots of overlap, I think, between these communities, right? These are people who fundamentally see a problem with how grant making is done, and want to help. So glad to have you as well. Back to the prompt set here. So yeah, then we go into some of these questions are pretty basic. And again, if you want to skip them, you just click skip like that, and it will grade it out. If you accidentally skip something, you can unskip. You can also, and I think this will work, this is a recently coded thing. If you just write NA, yeah, it automatically unskips it. And that means on my back end, it won't be included in the report. That saves me some time. You can also just leave, if you want to skip and just leave it blank, that works as well. So we have questions on the application, right? Was it a good fit for the funder? In terms, when we do our insights report, this is the thing that comes up most often in terms of a mistake. Very common, I think, particularly with our newer grant writers. They just weren't like, it's a good proposal, but they just weren't they weren't meeting this funder funds different stuff. It just wasn't what they were looking for. And really, this proposal never really had much of a chance because it really wasn't a good fit. I know fit can sometimes be a triggering word, and I wish there was a better way to describe it, but that is one of the realities of what's going on. I think it's really important for grant seekers to spend a lot of time on that before you put a lot of time into writing a proposal, making sure, hopefully through a relationship with the funder, right, that you are at least right in the ballpark of what they're trying to fund. Also, is this a complete and correct proposal? Oftentimes we do see stuff that did not follow the instructions. I would say give them the benefit of the doubt and try to be kind on that. But if it looks like maybe they didn't follow something, or if they skipped a question or they answered a question incorrectly, feel free to point that stuff out. Also, if you see spelling or grammatical mistakes, those are helpful corrections as well. Although with AI, the last few years, we're seeing the grammar and spelling is much more correct than it used to be. In the early days, we would see a lot of those kinds of mistakes, less so these days. And then is there anything else you have on the readability and the writing in there? This section, the goals section, was added during our recent evaluator session a couple summers ago. Evaluators wanted the opportunity to be able to comment on the goals, right? Are these SMART goals? Are they clear? Are the goals relevant to the funding program, right? Are they measurable? That sort of thing. We've given you space to comment on that sort of thing. The idea in the proposal, I want to say, not every idea needs to be novel. They don't always have to be innovative. It doesn't have to be outside the box idea. Sometimes a community just needs a health center, right? But if you want to comment on the strength of the idea, how clear it was presented to you, if you didn't understand the idea that's in there, this is all useful feedback. This is the section where you can provide that. Did you understand the organization? Was it well described? This is another common area of feedback. I like this proposal. I like the work being done. I don't really understand the nonprofit behind it. Sometimes that's on the funder. Maybe the funder didn't ask questions about the strength of the organization. If you had questions about the organization, you didn't really understand it, or you think they're too small or too big for this particular opportunity, this is the place to comment on that. Budget sections is all pretty straightforward. And again, we've got a budget training next week with Margaret. Sustainability is another trigger word. Sustainability can mean different things to a lot of people. I understand that. If you want to talk about your definition of what that means, if you think this idea needs to be sustainable, if you have questions on that front, if it doesn't seem feasible to you, this is the section to comment on that. How well is this organization working with others? Are there partners in their community that you know about that they should be working on? Were you impressed by the strength of their network, right? Those questions are here. And then finally, there's a sort of a broad, what should they do next? The prompt here. And if you want you can click this I'm finished button. I will point out the moment you type something, it's in our system. You don't need to save. You can leave and come back and it will be there. If you want to let me know that you've finished with a review, you click this I'm finished button. We also, at the very bottom here, have these buttons. These are optional. If you want to introduce them to somebody, click this. If you want to have a direct conversation with them yourself, click this one. Or if you want to just, you should read this book, or you should watch this movie, or you should go to this website. Or like if you want to suggest crappy funding practices to them or something like that, click this resource button. A little thing pops up, write your suggestion there. Be as specific as you can with these follow-up offers. Sometimes people write, I'd be happy to speak to you. Those don't really get followed up on very often. If you write, I'd be happy to speak with you because I think I can really add this value in this way, right? That's more likely that they will follow up on it. So that is the end of our little demo. Your comments that come in, right? At the end of the round, I go through, I read all of the comments. I try to do very little editing. If you made some big typos, I might fix that up. If you wrote something that doesn't make sense, if I have time, I might follow up with you and try to ask what you meant by it, but probably not. I probably won't have time to do that. I'm just going through to make sure each comment is helpful and candid and useful to include in the report. And then we send the reports out. The reports they will say who you are and give the background info that you gave us when you first signed up. And the report will list, it'll have 6 or more reviewers. Occasionally we're able to get, 15, even sometimes. Last round we had a couple reports that had over 20 different reviewers in it, right? And it's going to be reviewer 1, and then your comments, and then reviewer 2 and the comments and so forth. The reports can be quite long. Some of them can be 50 to 100 pages long. I submitted one of my own proposals a few rounds ago, and the evaluators were very eager to read that one. A lot of people who I did not assign it to read it anyway. And I got feedback from 56 different evaluators, and my feedback report was over 300 pages long. And I think that's way too much in general. I would not want to send that to somebody else, but it was useful for me to go through that process. So like I said, hopefully everybody has that email in their box and they're ready to go and review. If you end up having questions, please email me. I'm particularly during a round. I'm very responsive over email, dave@unfundedlist.com. I'm going to go quickly through some tips on how to give helpful and candid review. And I will, once again, share my screen for those of you who are visual learners. Here we go. So yeah, do your best and don't be shy. If you're reading the proposal and having a thought, share that thought. We want them to hear it. Don't really worry about being right or if you're correct or what other evaluators are saying. If you're reading it and thinking about it, that is important perspective to share. At the same time, I would say make sure the comments that you're making are helpful, candid, and also kind. You should be kind for several reasons. One, like we only get one chance to be on Earth, and I personally think you should be as kind as possible to everybody you meet. But also because they're going to be more likely to take your feedback seriously if you give it in a kind fashion. We do have some reviewers who can be harsher than others, and we have a couple of reviewers who have a lot of experience, and because of that experience, they will sometimes be really critical and kind of deliver their feedback in a very harsh fashion. And from the report discussions, I know that stuff is not necessarily absorbed as well as the comments that are made with kindness. So particularly if you're trying to say something critical, I would say find a way to make it with some kindness. Extend the benefit of the doubt. Grant writing's hard. They may have made a mistake. If you think they did, point that out, but try not to be accusatory about it. Be like, I noticed in the RFP they wanted this, but I didn't see that in your application. That's just something I wanted to flag, right? Don't assume they did it wrong, even if it looks like they did it wrong. We're reviewing from a lot of different folks. Some of them I've never spoken to. I don't always know the funders. We don't always have access to all that information. That can make it a challenge sometimes, but I think, try to give them the benefit of the doubt is a good rule of thumb. Like I said, don't worry about being right. Share your honest perspective. A lot of the funders out there working for grant makers and foundations, particularly family foundations, they're just looking to fund the programs that they like the best. They're not really worried about being right. So I'm not sure you should either. Don't try to be wrong, but like it's really not. Every round I get emails from evaluators and they're worried about writing a certain comment because they're not sure if it's right or not. If it's your perspective, it's the right thing to share. I would also say you should try to share. This is a good rule for public speaking and for any kind of commentary. Give some of your personal background if you can. So if you're a grant writer with 20 years of experience, say like, listen, I've been writing grants for 20 years of experience, and here's something I've learned in that time. If you're a funder, right? Or if you have a different cultural perspective, like if you're European and you're reading a proposal from Canada, you can write, I'm writing this from the perspective of a European. We wouldn't talk about it this way. We would talk about it this way. That kind of stuff is very useful to hear from the evaluators, particularly your experience and your background. Or if you've faced a similar issue, you want to say, oh, I've been through this issue and here's how I resolved it. Those comments are something that people really pay attention to. I would say focus on both strengths and weaknesses. If you just write about their weaknesses, they'll read that, but it'll go over a lot better if you also point out the stuff that they're doing well. I was really impressed with this section of the proposal. That's keep it up. Keep writing about that. 100 out of 100, right? This other area, I think, I would have liked to hear more information about that. That kind of comment is going to land really well. Actionable next steps. They love actionable next steps. I think we all do. Try not to be vague. Try to be like, here's how I think you can improve this if you can. And be as specific as possible. Stuff like this was unclear, or I didn't understand it, or this was vague, is vague, ironically. If you can say, I didn't understand this, how the budget connected to the financial narrative, or something more specific like that, that's going to be much more helpful as well. And again, don't shy away from really sort of the small stuff, right? If they're doing something that looks fundamentally incorrect, name it. One of the things that's really useful from our process is if they hear from 9 different reviewers and all 9 of them independently said the same thing, then that's really hard for them to ignore. And it's often very useful for the grant writer. The grant writer might agree with all 9 people, and they need help convincing their boss that we need to make that change in the proposal. So if they can go to their boss and show them this report and be like, look, all 9 of these people said the same thing. I think we really need to take it seriously. That becomes pretty hard to ignore and can really I've heard from a lot of authors that this is helpful for managing up in that way. And then lastly, I said, believe it or not, reviewing proposals is not always glamorous. Sometimes we're making, we're commenting on very small things, very small mistakes that can be improved in the proposal. Not everything we read is a diamond in the rough. We're not going to be able to instantly find huge grants for some of these things. That stuff happens occasionally, and it's always exciting when it does, but most of these proposals just need small tweaks, but they need to better think about who they're applying to, or maybe they shouldn't be applying for grants at all. All that stuff is particularly helpful and is what our authors are asking for us. In our insights report that we can share, and anybody who wants a copy of that, please email me. I'm happy to share it. I wrote a blog a few years ago on the 7 mistakes grant seekers make. This is the mistakes that our evaluators are pointing out most often, and the ones that I generally agree with. And it was interesting to me when we finally were able to do the AI analysis. We found that it was largely the same list of areas for improvement. I want to make sure there's some time to address some questions. I know we're short on time. Anyone who wants that insights report, or you want to read my 7 mistakes grant seekers make, excuse me. We do have another article that's on mistakes grant makers make. But in general, they're not necessarily making a mistake. There a lot of proposals get submitted to every program. You might read a proposal and think this was great. I don't really see anything wrong. That's kind of useful feedback to share. It's a very competitive space. It can be useful for authors to know that there's not necessarily a specific reason they didn't get funded. As I mentioned before, funder fit. I think one of the things a lot of authors don't do is consider that this is a competitive process. Sometimes they think it's just about the strength of their proposal, but ultimately on the grant maker side, they're reading a huge stack of proposals from a lot of different organizations that are all doing great work. Very competitive process. It's useful to sort of remind them of that sometimes. We do see unanswered questions, or they answer the question incorrect. Fundamentally, they like copied and pasted an answer that's that's an answer to a question, just not the one that was asked. Sometimes these requests can be unrealistic, like a very small nonprofit asking for way too much funding. Right? They might be fundamentally ineligible, right? And some of these programs should not be applying for grants at all. There's other ways to raise money for programs. Some of these programs are doing really well and earned revenue. In the last few years, we have seen a lot of folks that's during this batch that have lost their federal funding. And they're now pivoting to like private funding, which might be really not a good route for them. And that's important feedback to give as well. Again, we are not making any grants. We are not deciding if they should be funded. We are just reading this and trying to give our best feedback to folks. Quick note on AI. This is becoming an increasing thing. We are currently at the board level here at Unfunded List working on an AI policy. But I will say we are using it. I do plan on showing your comments to the AI in a generalized fashion so we can create that insights report. A lot of evaluators are using AI to craft their comments. If you want to write a draft and have AI polish it up, I think that's great. It'll make it easier to read. A lot of these proposals were written with AI. That is a reality of the world. It's one of the reasons why funders are getting a lot more applications. And we are going to cover AI bias. I would say you should try not to ding or criticize anyone for using it because it is a competitive process. The people they're competing against are likely using AI to write proposals as well. I passed Anthropic's AI fluency course earlier this week. I am fluent in AI, but I'm not necessarily a tech expert. I am trying to learn as much as possible. We are hoping to write, a more official AI policy. In the meantime, I would say, it's a tool. It's not a substitute for your judgment. Don't just show the proposal to the AI and ask it to criticize it. You can use it to help craft your own comments, but try to make sure that they are your own comments. So I wrote a new outline for today, and it is taking me a little longer than I had anticipated. I do want to make sure we can get into some questions, so I'll try to go quickly here. So we've had quite a bit of impact on the proposals we've reviewed in the past. When we've done impact studies, years after we've done review for folks, pretty much across the board, 9 out of 10 times they're raising a lot more money, 213% more on average. When we worked with DTA Foundation a few years ago, they opted in, and we were reviewing at the same time that DTA was making their decisions. About half of the people who applied opted in. Everybody who won a grant were amongst the folks who opted in. The odds of that happening naturally are 1 in 100. So what that says to me is that just asking for feedback is a really good sign that these groups are going to improve. And I think that's important to remember, that these folks are trying to get better, which is the first step towards getting better. And while we are reviewing individual proposals, we are also having a role on the entire philanthropic sector. A lot of people who work at grant makers, including some folks in the crowd today, are learning about how to do so and improving their proposal reviewing skills through us. A lot of people reviewed their first proposal with us and have gone on to become proposal reviewers with other programs and other things. We've given feedback to funders who've been able to improve their processes. The work we're doing here is having a large ripple effect beyond just individual reviews. I've mentioned a few times that we do have a board of directors here. We are a nonprofit ourselves. Our donors and our board are all evaluators like yourself. The evaluation opportunity is meant to be very flexible and relate to your time. If you're looking to make Unfunded List a priority, we would love to have your help. We have room on the board. We have some committees. If you want to do something to help us out beyond reviewing, whether that's making a donation to us, which would be very appreciated but not required, or join our board or help out with some help as well. I know a lot of you have very important skills that you might be able to lend to us. Please let me know. We do need some help. Trying to, especially now that I have a lot of evaluators and we're getting a lot of proposals each round. I'm just one man, and I do enjoy coordinating this. I learn a lot from you, but if you want to help me out more, please let me know. I'm going to do it. We have one of our evaluators stepped up this year. He's making a monthly donation now, and is also um,
Can't hear it.
oh, really? Is it? Sorry, you can't hear him?
Yeah, I think the voice is not coming through. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. I'm not sure why that is. But I'll summarize. Patrick he worked at a foundation, and he also works at the Boys and Girls Club. Now he works at the Boys and Girls Club of Hartford as a grant writer. So he's saying, and you can check our YouTube page to find his video and see it for yourself. Thanks for letting me know you couldn't hear him. I was about to play the whole thing. He joined our board this round. It's very useful to have him and his perspective on both sides. He's doing some community work with us and also evaluating. All of our board members are evaluators. It's important to me that they, that they're helping out with the program, that they understand that side of things. And that is our growth and our funding, such as it is, right, comes from folks like Patrick. So yeah, there we go. We are now in the open Q&A phase. I took a little bit longer than I'd hoped. Maybe I'll make some cuts for the next time I do this. But thank you very much for attending this. I'm happy to answer questions if you want to stick around. If you have to get back to work, let me know. Let's see here. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anybody have any questions on or anything they would like to ask me? Thank you, Nick. Very good. It must have been a comprehensive session. Good. Thank you for asking. Okay, there's a hand raised. Alexandria, I'll get to you in a minute. So Cheryl, I know an employee from an organization I received a grant to review. Any concerns regarding conflict of interest? Thank you for asking that. People ask me all the time about this sort of thing. I would say no. We've designed this program to I really don't think there should be any conflicts of interests. We are only going to give your feedback to the folks who asked for it. We aren't making, and everybody in our program is getting treated the same. So you can't, there's no way for you to put your thumb on the scale, right? Everybody's getting a feedback report. I'm not scoring these. I'm not giving grants to anybody. You're not approving or rejecting anyone. So I personally believe that you should, and the fact that if you know someone who works there, that means you might have unique insight. It also means I did a good job, I think, of matching you to a proposal. Because I am making these thoughtfully. I'm trying to give you proposals that I think you'll be interested in, that are in your area. So it's not uncommon for me to assign proposals to folks where you've heard of that organization. During Matt's bias training, he is going to talk about what's called affinity bias, where like you might be less likely to be critical because you know them, right? And he can give you some tactics on how to deal with that. But I will say, if you get a proposal from me and you're uncomfortable reviewing it for some reason, let me know. We have a lot of reviewers. I am happy to take that one off your plate and suggest another one, or you can just skip it. But from my point of view, I think the fact that you know someone who works there is a benefit. It means you're going to be more familiar with them. It's only going to help you to give helpful feedback. And Alexandria, you used the hand raising feature. Very good. If you want to unmute yourself.
It actually took the words out of my mouth in some sense. So it was kind of like the same question.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. One of the things I'll say, I think the nonprofit sector is often very sensitive about conflicts of interest. And if you're a funder, like that's something that you should really be careful for. But I think, the fact that you know an organization really puts you in a better position to help them. It is a community. We are trying to help folks out. So hopefully you all get to know each other over the course of reviewing with us. Are there free online trainings or courses I would recommend to improve your grant writing skills and become better evaluators. Well, I mean, this session, I think, is a good one to attend. So thank you for attending this. We've got Margaret's budget session next week. And Matt, I think in particular, Matt's bias session is very useful. I've been through it myself, and I think it was very helpful. We all have our biases and our preferences. That's a natural part of what's at. In fact, that's literally what we're asking you to do here. And I think building some skills on how to deal with that can really help. I think the process of reading proposals and commenting on them is a very unique way to improve your own grant writing. There's a psychological effect, I forget what it's called, but you're very unlikely to see your own mistakes. So when you read your own grants, you might miss mistakes. Once you start reading, once you know it's someone else's grant you're reading, you're going to be much more likely to notice mistakes. And you may even say like, oh, now that I see someone else writing that way, I see that's not really a good, and notice that you're doing it yourself. I think that's something to keep in mind as you go through this. In general, there's a lot of grant writing trainers out there. I would recommend, if you're a professional grant writer, I would look into Grant Professionals Association. We Unfunded, we go to the Grant Summit, their national conference every year. A lot of people who are members of GPA evaluate with us. There's also something called the Grant Writing Professionals Certification Institute, GPCI. I know, and so if you ever see someone with GPC after their name, that's where they got those credentials. They have a robust curriculum for grants professionals if you want to keep up that credential, and it requires you to do pro bono evaluation volunteering. And so I know a lot of those folks are using our program in order to get those hours done. So it's a very complimentary group. When we do trainings here, we do try to focus on reviewing proposals. I do think there's a lot of fundraising trainers out there, many of them probably better and more experienced than I. But thank you for that question. Alexandra, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was also curious about also I wanted to have a proposal that I want to submit as well,
Oh, great.
and also want to get funding for my own business and things like that. Was that an option also?
Yes. Thank you for that question. So several of the folks who attended this training today are also having their proposals reviewed. I am strongly encouraging of having you participate in both sides of our program. You can submit a proposal and also evaluate. It's not necessarily a conflict of interest to review your own proposal. I just think that won't be particularly helpful. So you'll see your own, if you submit a proposal, which we'll be doing around in the fall, you're very encouraged to share one with us. We'll make sure it gets reviewed. I probably won't assign it to you, but it'll be there on the full list, and you'll be able to go and look at it and everything. But if you comment on it, I just don't think it won't be particularly helpful to to comment on your own thing. But yeah, I think the way to get the most value out of Unfunded List is to participate in all of the ways. You should review proposals, you should submit your own proposals and get reviewed, and then you should also attend the report discussion with either Margaret and I, so we can talk through that with you. And I think if you're evaluating proposals, I think probably evaluating first is a good idea, because then you'll have a pretty good idea of like what kind of comments to expect when you finally get reviewed. Lots of first-time folks who submit a proposal to us, if they've never evaluated, the feedback report will come as kind of a surprise. They don't know they didn't realize there would be that many reviewers or know really what to expect. You'll have a much better idea of what to expect. I also think attending our trainings is a great way to get the most value out of our program. So come to these online sessions, submit proposals, review proposals, finish your reviews early and ask for additional reviews. I'm encouraging of all of those things. We've still got a couple dozen of you here, so that's great. I'm always impressed when people stay till the end. One of my goals with any session is to make people late to the next meeting. So I'm pleased with that. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments for me? I'm happy to, if you want to just ask general questions about the state of philanthropy or funders or our process or anything I can help you answer.
I just have a quick question, Dave. I know in the past, and I think in this review session as well, you mentioned giving a little bit of introduction about ourselves and where we're coming from, our experience that kind of sheds light on the feedback that we're giving. But you also mentioned you do include a little bit about us at the start of our review. Is it possible to just, it's been a long time since I submitted my application to review. Is it possible to see what we wrote? Like, would you mind sending that? I don't know if everybody needs that, but I would just like to see mine so I know what's included
Yes.
there and I know what I can kind of supplement with.
Introduction. Nice to see you, Crystal. Crystal submitted a proposal to us a while ago.
Mhm.
And you've been evaluating for a few rounds now. I'm pretty sure yours will say, Crystal, how do you pronounce your last name? I've always wondered.
Chaya.
Chaya?
Chaya.
That's exactly what I would have guessed.
Yeah.
But what is your title? Are you still in the same role in New Hampshire there?
It's probably changed since then, actually. Yeah, I'm grant writer right now.
Are you still at New Hampshire Public
New
Radio?
Hampshire Public Radio. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it says Chaya? Crystal Chaya, grant writer, New Hampshire Public Radio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's what it says. I think you've given me a pretty good idea. I think one of the things I'll do before we send the reports out is send an email and maybe a little form to allow evaluators to update that. I do my best to try to track your careers as well. So like when I'm making assignments, when I look at your LinkedIn, if I see you've moved on to something new, or if evaluators update me, they email me and tell me they have a new role, then I'll update that information. It's fairly general. I try to follow, this is relevant to public radio, I guess. I try to follow journalistic standards here, right? So if I was writing a news story and I was quoting you as a source, right, I would want to make sure we had, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to have anonymous comments. I think those are much less useful. If we have no idea what you do or where you're coming from, that makes the comment less useful. If we know you're a grant writer for a public radio station, that really gives a lot of deep context, and I'm sure is very appreciated to folks. But I think you can, in addition to that, if you're making a comment, you say, "Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm a grant writer for a public radio station. When we apply for grants, here's the thing that we've been doing, or here's the thing I've noticed that when we try doesn't work." Right? That you're in a great position to give feedback, and in giving that background is really going to help. I'm going to give a quick anecdote. So my mother is the first evaluator I ever recruited. She was a women's studies professor here in Maine at Colby College, and she was reviewing a proposal that had been submitted to, at the time was called UK Aid. It's now called DFID, I think. They've changed their name a few times. But this was a proposal to be doing some work in Eastern Africa. And my mother, in one of her comments, she wrote, "I'm making this comment as a Western feminist." And when I finally got to the report discussion with them, they were like, "Why did she write that?" And that launched into a very good conversation about how, when you apply to different kinds of programs, you're going to encounter different kinds of reviewers. Some of them may be Western feminists, and they're going to have certain thoughts about, this was a program that worked with women in refugee camps, and they're going to have certain thoughts about that. And then they had been trying to apply for this DFID funding, which is a governmental funder. And that sort of opened up their idea that they could find more feminist-minded funders. There are many funding programs that are specifically by and for women, right, where you're going to want to write grants a little bit better. You're going to want to write grants more to that audience. They had never considered that before. They were only going after government grants and writing sort of very staid proposals. And they ended up, when they made that pivot, they ended up being very successful, raising a lot of money from women-run foundations. So giving that sort of background is useful for giving context, but it can also lead to lots of other stuff. And it helps me in the report discussion to be able to sort of give context to why things are coming in. So thank you for that question. And I think we will try to, particularly for our evaluators who've been doing it for a while, give people an opportunity to maybe update their background and what they're doing. I try not to give, your contact information is not in there. Sometimes authors do, this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes they might reach out to you on LinkedIn or something If that becomes a problem for anybody, please let me know. We can, but don't feel obligated to respond. Really, it really hasn't been much of a problem over the years, and it really does provide a lot of benefit, particularly when they see there's a bunch of different reviewers, knowing the different, because inevitably in a lot of reports there are direct contradictions. One evaluator might say one thing, and another evaluator says the opposite thing. They can't possibly both be true, right? And at that point, it's really important to know, who these folks are, where they're coming from. I got some I applied to Echoing Green at another program a long time ago, like 20 years ago, and they were giving feedback. I don't know if they still give feedback, but they were giving it at the time. Two of my reviewers, this was anonymous feedback. I didn't get to know their names or anything, but I got 2 comments from 2 reviewers, and they were the opposite. One said one thing, and the other said the exact opposite thing. And I really, that was not particularly helpful for me. I really didn't know how to move forward because I didn't know what their experience was, what their background is. So, and I've seen through the report discussions that part is very useful and appreciated. Thank you for that question. Someone else had the same question, I guess. Very good. Anyone else? I'm very happy to have had so many folks attend the Q&A this round. We have a lot of the reviews have been done already. I think we have over 50 reviews completed. So if anybody did an early review, I really appreciate that. It is very helpful for me, the coordinator, to get stuff in early. I understand a lot of you are going to wait until the deadline. We generally get over half of all of the reviews come in the last 24 hours, which is a fun 24 hours for me. But anything that comes in early, gets read early, gives me more of a chance to make sure that these reports are thorough and helpful and all of that. Thank you very much. Crystal, you have another question.
I had another good question, actually. Looking at the review form, and I feel like this is where I do tend to spend a little bit more time, and I wonder how much time I should be spending. But under the organization section, with asking about if the organization is capable of executing this idea and asking about their capacity, are they too big, too small, too few resources? I find that sometimes this is where I tend to start diving into the organization's website, their annual report, looking at their staff, looking at their board, et cetera, trying to get a sense of that if that information is not spelled out neatly in the proposal. And I wonder, is that what we should be doing at that point? Are we just trying to look at what is presented in the proposal and judge the proposal for what it is and what's included? Or should we be kind of digging a little bit deeper to get a sense of, well, are they resourced well enough? Are they well enough connected?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. And I have a few thoughts on that. One, I think that's in terms of your own learning. Again, this is meant to be a learning opportunity for you. I think that's a very useful thing to be doing. Then you're learning, these oftentimes, I think this is a common mistake that funders are making, is that the proposal itself didn't ask enough questions about the organization.
Right.
And so, and if you go, and it is also often true that a lot of these organizations are much better at describing their work on their own website than they are in grant proposals. And I think that's a very helpful comment. So we see this often is, when I read your answer to this question, I found it vague and confusing. But when I went to your website, I thought it was really well explained. Right? And you might and website writing is different than grant writing, and often it's it might be a different person on the team. But giving them that commentary can be really useful for them and useful for you as well, because fundamentally learning about a new organization and or a new funder, you might want to do this on the other side of things too. Go to the funder's website, learn about who's there and how their decision-making process is going. And if you want to do that deep dive, I think that's going to be good for your learning and it's going to make your feedback a lot better. If you don't have time for that, I understand. It's not like we're not asking you to, knock yourself out on this stuff. But in terms of getting the most out of volunteering with us, I think that's exactly what you should be doing.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I hope, Crystal, I hope we get another. It's been a while. I know people enjoy it. We've had several public radio stations send us proposals. We've done WUNC down in North Carolina, and there was a New Mexico station and one in Colorado as well. And those are always fun to read. I think there's a lot of overlap between evaluators and public radio listeners. In fact, I think a lot of people are listening to public radio while they do their evaluations. So that's really cool. And I hope we get another proposal from you as well, even though you are in New Hampshire.
Yeah, what's wrong in New Hampshire?
I'm just in Maine, and it's a bit of a ride. I have to drive through your state. And I like to poke fun at New Hampshireans, I guess. You have tall, impressive mountains. I will say that. Anybody else? Appreciate everybody sticking around, and appreciate your reviews as well. Hopefully you'll get to them. As I said earlier, I am very responsive over email, particularly to evaluators. If you have if you come up with a question later that you forgot to ask, email me. I'm especially this time of year, I am in my inbox most of the day, ready to respond to folks, try to be as helpful as possible. And particularly if you're interested in doing more with Unfunded List, right? If you're interested in joining our board or making a donation and you want to talk about that, or if you work with a grant maker or some sort of capacity building program and you want to partner with us to provide feedback to all of your folks, I have plenty of time for those kinds of conversations. This is my main gig. I don't have a real job. I guess, I mean, I work quite a bit at this, but this is my main thing. I'm happy to hear from evaluators, whatever I can do to help you out. Thanks, everybody. I like to end these things with a little Miss America wave. Goodbye, everybody. There will be a video and a little AI written summary that Spinach will share with you all. It will get sent out soon. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you to our new evaluators and our old evaluators and the Unfunded List board and everybody else. Have a good afternoon. Or